As the world reels from the Orlando gay nightclub massacre, details have emerged about the father of the attacker. He initially condemned the killings, but also spoke up about homosexuality as something that deserves punishment. Yannick Kian has got the story.
The father's initial reaction to the shooting was one of shock and disbelief, but it also told us something about the beliefs that the Orlando shooter was exposed to at home, particularly about homosexuality.
My son, Omar Mateen, was a very nice and educated boy. He had a wife and a child and was very respectful of his family. I don't know why he did such a thing in the holy month of Ramadan. The issue of homosexuality and punishment for that is up to God alone.
Even though he said it's not people who should punish others for homosexuality, there was a lot of backlash to the father saying that it is a sin punishable by God immediately after a massacre where 49 people became victims of a hateful crime. He then came up with a stronger condemnation of his son.
Yesterday I was in shock. My whole family was in shock. And I didn't know what I was saying. If I said anything, I apologize for that. Anything that I made a mistake. I don't approve what he did. What he did was completely an act of terrorist. If I did catch him, I would have arrested him myself.
Sadiq Mateen came from Afghanistan. We don't know exactly when he immigrated to the United States, but he got himself involved in Afghan politics at a distance. He posted videos on YouTube. He hosted a TV show, criticized the Afghan government, announced himself president of Afghanistan in exile at one point, cheered for the rise of Afghan Taliban. Here's a quote from one of his videos. "Our brothers in Waziristan, our warrior brothers in the Taliban movement and National Afghan Taliban are rising up," end quote. Sadiq Mateen also apparently tried to get in touch with U.S. officials. He posted a video of his visit to Capitol Hill and to the State Department office on Capitol Hill, but the State Department has no recollection of his meeting with any officials. I asked. When the shooter's father, Sadiq Mateen, visited the State Department in April, he posted this picture on Facebook. Yeah. Why was he here? Who did he meet? What did they discuss?
That's actually in front of our office on Capitol Hill, where we have an office that we work with consular issues for members, but we have no records of any meeting with this gentleman and any State Department policy officials whatsoever.
So we're learning that his father was politically active and had certain religious beliefs. Details about Omar Mateen's father may not be relevant to the massacre at the Orlando Gay Club, but they could tell us something about the ideas he was exposed to when growing up.
That was Yannick Kian there. Well, we also heard from the president of Afghanistan's National Coalition for Dialogue, and he said that the shooter's father had been widely discredited within the Afghan community.
Omar Mateen's father is a self-proclaimed so-called president of Afghanistan, and he's been running around his pictures and videos on Facebook and on YouTube, speaking incoherently. And he makes all these fantastic claims. One minute he's in favor of the Taliban, next moment he's against the Taliban, he's in favor of Pakistan. The man himself, in my opinion, personal opinion, is unstable. He's become a laughingstock among the Afghan community. I think the FBI should not only pay attention to the father, but the people that surround the family and the father and everybody else around him.
Details have been uncovered about the gunman himself. Reports citing regulars at the nightclub where the tragedy happened say Mateen visited it several times. One said he'd frequented the bar for the last 3 years. The gunman is also said to have used gay dating apps. Meanwhile, the FBI has admitted that they had looked into Omar Mateen twice before, once over inflammatory comments to his colleagues and the other over his supposed links to an ISIL suicide bomber. In either case, though, were the investigations taken further. Mateen was also the legal owner of a gun. It has brought criticism from security experts and politicians.
He didn't get past the threat assessment and they dropped everything. And as a consequence, because to have even a preliminary investigation, you have to show that you indeed have a link with terrorists, that you may have even committed a terrorist act. That wasn't the case here. You see, the terrorists know our regulations and our guidelines. They know that if there was an investigation of any kind, even a preliminary one, it's going to, and if they have nothing, it stops.
I do think there is a very compelling case here to improve our gun laws, and especially the assault weapons ban. There's this whole culture of violence and a cult of personal violence that we really saw in this case. A very violent individual whose violence long predated his self-identification with ISIS. This was a man who had long-standing domestic abuse, racist, homophobic, who was really spewing violence as part of his daily life for many years.
In total, 49 people died when the ISIL sympathiser Omar Mateen opened fire in that busy nightclub. Most of the victims were aged under 35 and the youngest was just 19 years old. RT's Marina Portnaya went to a vigil in Orlando that was attended by many of the survivors.
Just lost really close friends, my ex-boyfriend, just a lot of people that we know, and a place that we go every Saturday. I was lucky enough, God was there with me. I left 5 minutes before the tragedy. We were in the car, we heard it, but we didn't even know what it was.
In the midst of such grief, suffering from so much violence and trauma, the city of Orlando showed an unprecedented sign of solidarity and support.
We are all part of the LGBT community in Orlando.
We are a city that's wounded, but we will recover.
As this city continues to mourn, continues to get over the shock and trauma of what has unfolded in the past few days, they stand together.
I think everyone can see a part of them in this tragedy.
Heartbreaking, senseless that people that young are going through this.
There is parking.
Just the fact that there's that much hatred in the world is unbelievable.
The vigil and the amount of people that came onto the street really is a symbol of how this city and the United States is uniting behind all of the victims that suffered in the Orlando club shooting. Reporting from Orlando, Marina Portnaya, RT.